Welcome to our first ever podcast of Producers Without Borders. Hi, my name is Kayvon Mishayak, and I'm the founder of PWB. Simply stated, we're a global group of close-knit creatives in the entertainment industry who are cross-pollinated with executives in technology, finance, law, and a host of other professions where long-term relationships are the foundation of success. Let's get started. Our guests are Kami Asghar, Glenn Gaynor, and Valentina Bove.
So good morning. It's March 9th, 2025. We're in Austin, Texas.
Yes,
and we're grateful. This is the first edition of the podcast, Producers Without Borders. And my name is Kayvon Mishayak. I'm the founder of Producers Without Borders. And I'm very, very grateful to have three esteemed colleagues of mine, executives and producers from the film industry, to talk about what this network is all about. And at the end of the day, it's about one thing. It's about the business of relationships, if you want to call it that. And relationships are integral in every aspect of life, whether they're personal or professional, because they're the things that create opportunities, that create love, respect, a way of thinking that brings people together from all over the world. Doesn't matter what country you're from, what language you speak, what background you have, how rich you are, how poor you are. Relationships are the foundation, they're the glue that connect people from around the world. And I was fortunate enough 20 years ago to make a movie called The Keeper of the Legend of Omar Khayyam. The gentleman to my far left, Mr. Kami Asghar, was a motion picture sound editor of that film, and he was the person who saved me in the post-production stage of the film in making it viable as a theatrical product that ended up being on the screen for 53 weeks in 14 different cities around the United States. I'm going to start off with Kami because I explained how important he was to me and our friendship and our network, because he was able to introduce me to Mr. Glenn Gaynor, who's an executive and a producer and an author himself in the film industry. And subsequently to that, I met Valentina Bove, who's a Latin American producer through a professional organization that I also belong to in the producing community. So Kami, please take it away.
from the start of it, I mean, just our relationship, you showed up at my door, you finished shooting a movie, and it was sort of like, well, where do I go from here? We all are producers in a way, whatever aspect, all those aspects that you talked about, we all come together to produce a product. And having you, with your film, it takes a village to get all of this stuff done. And there's so many little bits and pieces for us to be able to deliver something to the public. And it's in order to deliver it, we all have our little pieces to, put in together and put our Jengas on it. And it all comes from relationships. You came to me from a past relationship of another guy, called me up and said, hey, Kayvon needs help. He had nothing to gain by, helping you. It was just putting out a hand going, hey, he needs this. And from there, I put you in other people's hands to take it to the finish line.
Speaking of finish line, the gentleman to your right is the person that you were able to introduce me to, and he's all about doing something that takes you from the beginning to the finish line. So, Mr. Gaynor, Glenn.
Hi, good morning. Yeah. And Kami and I, we actually met when I was making independent films. I got my start in independent movies. I graduated film school, and the first thing I did was produce, write, and I acted in it as well, just because that's what you do when you're young. A short film that had this fantastic production value, and it was a very collaborative process. I was able to get Panavision to get us to cameras. We had Kodak film at tremendous discounts. We had grants from banks because of the diverse heads of department I was bringing on. And that film actually was my calling card for something I did not expect to be so involved in, which is producing. As a college student graduating at that time, I figured, okay, I'll get this done. I got an offer to write for ABC. But then people who were coming in to represent me, managers, were saying, this film is really good. Would you help me produce a short film with Gary Busey and Harry Hamlin? And I would read the script and say, sure, let me help. Let me be additive to the process. And so I produced a short film, and that was with director D.W. Brown, who's a great acting coach. And his wife, Joanne Barron, also a phenomenal acting coach, said, listen, I have a friend. She's married to Kenny G. We want to do this feature film. It's going to be an improv film where it's 15 to 20 page treatment. Could you help me? So I said, this is a good idea. So I helped and produced. And because I was helping them and empowering them, I kept getting in independent films. And it was additive and continuous. And as I was making other films such as Happy Texas with William H. Macy, which we made for about 1.7, sold for about 10 million at Sundance, it was Bill Macy who later, when he was doing another film called Panic, said, hey guys, there's somebody I'd love you to meet who helped produce this film I did called Happy Texas. Again, because I was in the background empowering people. And I think that's what's so great about what this organization is all about, is we're here to empower each other.
Yeah, and speaking of empowering each other, Valentina is a classic example of a producer who has been innovative enough um, to discover a new way of filmmaking that is now captivated a much younger audience. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you do as a producer, because you come from the Latin American background of producing content and for the studios, long form, and now you've jumped into the short form, which is also about empowering and enabling people to tell stories in a way that's attractive for the younger audience.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation. Well, first of all, I think I am the one that created a new system, because right now we are doing vertical shows. Basically, with Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, we are now making, like shows like novelas, like soap operas, but for the younger audience, like the Gen Zs and Gen Alphas. And since I come, same as you, from the feature film independent world, I was able to imprint my low budget indie style into the vertical world. I was the first producer to coming into the space. No one was there. It was a little bit of like a forest. I was the first one to arrive, and there were no rules. So what I did is I came up with a system to shoot in the vertical world. And even though we none of us, me and my crew, none of us knew what we were doing at the beginning because it was all new. I think we all relied on each other to create this new way of filming just for the vertical screen. And this talks a lot about the power of teams, the power of your tribe. Once you find your tribe and you find your team, when a problem comes as big as we've never shot for the vertical world, your team is there to catch you. Your team is there to say, well, now we have a smaller frame. We don't have that much information in the frame. How are we going to make this location or the art department work? How are we going to frame the shot? How are we going to just make maybe the wardrobe more stylist, even though we don't have the resources to do it? What can be helpful to make this new vertical world more impactful and enjoyable for the audience? And this is all thanks to my team, thanks to all my crew and the cast, who they show up every day. And even though we were all filming for the horizontal frame, we are now all dedicating our lives to this new way of filming, which is for the vertical frame.
I think this is very interesting because this also opens up a world of opportunities for people in other parts of the world who don't have access to resources necessarily to make their films happen. Because now we're in a world where you can shoot something vertical, you can shoot something horizontal through digital devices. So it enables an entire world of new storytelling, Glenn.
Well, that's exactly it. I think what Valentina is doing is incredible, because representation is the most important thing about storytelling. People want to see themselves represented. They want to feel empowered. They want to believe that they have a reason to be here. They deserve to be here. And these stories are reinforcing that very notion, because the traditional 20th century Hollywood was just like all 20th century media. It had its gatekeepers, and that was the necessity of the industry. And that's why we had at that time specific movie stars. They were curated. They were brought into the system. And as Bob Evans was changing things at Paramount in the 70s, and we're getting films like The Godfather, these off studio lot films. We were going through this transition, and audiences were shocked just at that kind of transition. Even when Orson Welles was saying, you know what, I'm going to shoot A Touch of Evil. I'm going to grab this airy camera from Germany, which people in Hollywood were not really using, and get this handheld, visceral response. What you're doing today is almost an homage to the evolution of storytelling. We've always been pushing those boundaries, but we survive in our entirety because you've got to have a whole spectrum of options, a whole spectrum of choices, and each story is going to be nuanced to the medium of which you're producing it in.
And also the culture also, to be able to spread that kind of knowledge to another culture, to have them to open up their mind saying, hey, I don't have those resources, but I if you teach me the basics, I have a million stories to tell. Like, for example, you can go to Africa right now and, there's a place in Nigeria, they do Nollywood, for example.
Yeah.
You've heard, it's incredible. They just crank them out, but because they have a need to tell their story. There are places in this world where they don't have resources, but have a need to tell the story. And that's the most important thing about Producers Without Borders, because we're trying to enable, empower, encourage by bringing together a team of people who are thinking about others before they're thinking about themselves.
Just going back to what you guys were saying, storytelling has been with us since we were, in caves with, sticks and stones. Somebody would stand up and tell a story, and good stories progress and have come through time. And, we had plays at a certain point. It's always evolving. Storytelling is always evolving. We seem to think just because Hollywood took it and packaged it and was able to sell it worldwide and have this amazing, business model, you're right. There were gatekeepers of what gets curated and what gets sent out. There was 5 people in Hollywood making the decision of what people see all around the world.
And they represented what their studio was.
Yeah.
MGM, when The Lion Roared, was big musicals, and Warner Brothers was the gangster studio. And, it was an era of identification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, it's funny because during COVID, my daughter started producing her own TikToks and became wildly effective. And me watching, okay, the audiences do gravitate to this new medium. For a minute there, I was sitting there going, what is vertical? And it was the vertical screen, because we come from this world of how, being a kid sitting in a movie theater and having this expanse of wideness, and it went super, super wide. Cinerama Dome had that giant screen. And now taking storytelling and putting it and having a captive audience, just watching it vertically
Valentina, you talked about it. Talk about this a little bit more, because I think, you can give us a little quick snapshot of what we're talking about. It's shot in 8 to 10 days. The budgets are between $175,000 and $700,000. And you've shot more than 50 of these already, and you've got like 15-picture deal already with a studio to do more. So tell us a little bit more about this medium, and describe to people how it works, just in a brief nutshell.
Well, let me see if I can make this as short as
Okay,
possible.
Well, go ahead. Make it as long as possible too. We can edit.
The first thing that I'm very proud about is I came up with the star system. I literally just watch thousands of tapes and auditions, and we choose the actors that are gems, diamonds. No one has ever seen them before. And then I turn them into stars. I hire them in 1, 2, 3, 4 shows. And by the show number 10th, they become a vertical star. And basically, I raise their quota. They start like really low and they go up in price. And I have a few actors that they are now like very expensive for the vertical world. And I am very proud. They are in all of the shows. The audience loves them. So that's the number one thing that I was able to bring from the independent world and our previous star system. This is like a tiny version.
You're the Louis B. Mayer of verticals.
That's it.
Yes, correct.
Star makers. I mean, that's what
Yes.
Hollywood studios were. Yeah.
Yes. And then the other thing that we do is Now, because it's for TikTok and Instagram, every 3-4 seconds we have to cut to another shot because everything is very fast in social media. So we do tons of coverage. It's very important. The master scene construction, all of the inserts, and just a lot. Like we are really overshooting. We try to do 2 cameras.
Yeah, but the camera is a
No,
phone?
no, we just shoot vertical. So you just use the regular Sony Venice or FX3 or any camera,
Yeah.
and you just in your settings, you just set it for the vertical frame. We actually use vertical monitors, and so you can look the final product. It's very comfortable, actually.
But here's my question, because we had a recent discussion about this. If you're shooting something can you shoot it simultaneously, vertical and horizontal, so you can have a feature-length film? Because I think you're going to get to the fact that you're shooting an actual feature film with verticals, but you're chopping it up into segments. So you can talk about that.
Well, I spent the entire 2024 filming that way, and artistically it's very hard and very challenging to accommodate vertical frame and horizontal frame. So honestly, in an ideal world, we just stay vertical, especially for art department and for framing, because you want the actors in the center.
But what's amazing about that is that when I was making films at Screen Gems, we would bring the director in, and I would walk him down to the Thalberg building. We had a great head of production for Columbia TriStar Motion Picture Group, and I worked with him on the Screen Gems side. It was all Sony Pictures, and we would talk to the director or the cinematographer and say, "Listen, we get that you're making a movie," and that's what we did. Screen Gems was all theatrical motion pictures, but we had to remind the director that even though this is a movie studio, that the film is going to live in different formats, that it's going to be played on the airplane. They're going to change the aspect ratio, that we might be shooting 240, which is super wide, but we may have to crop for 185, which is less wide, or 4:3, which was the standard of older televisions for various platforms. And this actually led to a cinematographer at the American Society of Cinematographers Gala at the ASC. He got up, this was a long time ago, of course, and he said, "We are losing the frame." And everybody went wild and applauded. He said, "Yes, we're losing the frame. We need to be purist. If you shoot 240, it should always be in 240." In fact, one of the first directors to insist his film was always kept in the same aspect ratio was Woody Allen when he made a picture called Manhattan. And you would watch it on television in your 4:3 TV, that thing was wide. And so it's been a dilemma for filmmakers for years, this concept you're making something in one frame. I even studied that in the 1990s, when they said 2001 Space Odyssey, here it is as it should have been theatrically, and here is how people watched it on TV. And if you remember the film with the actors in their pods on either side of the screen, when it was playing on your home television, you just saw noses, and they would pan and scan. So it's the same dilemma that you're experiencing, but you're making it extreme now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think another challenge that we have is, for example, with locations. Like the other day, we were filming at a $10 million home, beautiful. But the problem is that because we were in vertical, it looked like, you couldn't see as much production value because when you place the actor in your close-up or your medium close-up, you're losing so much information in the frame. Yep. So I was, sitting in Video Village thinking, why am I in these such expensive locations?
Yeah. So
just
go
to a cheaper place.
Like the angles so that there's longer back.
Yes.
You're not up against walls.
Yes, and honestly,
space.
you don't have to be in such an expensive location. You can just go into a cheaper one, and it will not make a difference for the audience, because what we really want is changing the background so the audience doesn't fall asleep while watching the show. Mm-hmm. The shows are actually pretty long. They're 108 pages or 110 pages.
Wow.
It's just like a feature film length, but then we break it into episodes of 1 minute or 2 minutes, so people can enjoy it on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook.
So how many episodes does that?
So they can be like, depending on the app, each app each vertical app divides its episodes in a different way, but you can have 100 episodes. Or just imagine like a TV show for Netflix, but each episode is 1 minute long and
So-
it lasts
and then-
108 minutes. And then
And
you
then
go,
you swipe.
and everything ends with a cliffhanger. And then you're like going, what's next? And what's next? And what's next?
Yep.
All the way
Yep.
until
And that's
the
how they
end.
monetize it.
Yeah, for example, for Pocket FM, some of the shows were like $500 to get to the end of the show, to get to the final, to
Wow.
know what happens with the lead. And this talks about the power of story and character. Because if you don't have a story, forget it.
It is. It's so true. I remember I was talking to Tom Mankiewicz, who was a creative writer on Superman, the Marlon Brando movie, and he wrote Live and Let Die, the James Bond film. And his dad was Joseph Mankiewicz, who won back-to-back Academy Awards for A Letter to Three Wives and All About Eve. So he was talking about something that he witnessed with his father and Martin Scorsese. And Marty was at the house, and Joseph was talking about Raging Bull. And he said, Marty, I got to tell you, it's a wonderful picture you made. Okay, this was old time. He said, it was a wonderful picture,
That's how they talk.
right? That's how they talked.
You see?
But the thing is, what I liked about that movie is that if you took out all the boxing, it's still a good story. And I think that's what people forget today is that stories that are maybe action-driven or stories that are driven by some kind of visual still have to hold up in an emotional arc. And what he meant by that is that Raging Bull, taking all the boxing out, is still a wonderful picture, he said.
I love that. I love that, especially, for example, with our director. Right now, I just wrapped the show with director Miguel Ferrer, and we went through all of the scenes with the executive, with the studio executive, and we will go and say, okay, this scene, what is this scene about, and what is the emotion that we want to convey? And we really focus on all of the emotions so we all know what we're doing in terms of we completely dominate our story and our characters, because it's so important to be in control creatively and knowing what you're doing when you go, even though it's for the vertical frame.
Yeah. What's interesting as well is, in the features side, which has been my discipline for a few decades, we have so much to homage. And I'll go back to that Joseph Mankiewicz story very quickly, because people ask, why did Joseph Mankiewicz, this great director, why did he retire? He said, I have nothing new to tell. I'm done. I don't have anything new I want to say. And he didn't want to homage. In fact, when he and Tom saw the Brian De Palma movie, The Untouchables, and the scene where the carriage is bouncing down the stairs, which is an homage to Eisenstein's Potemkin, the Russian film of the very early 20th century, Joseph walked out and he said, what the heck was that? And Tom said to his dad, it's an homage. He said, you know what? When you borrow images, they call it an homage. When you borrow something from a book or a screenplay, it's called stealing. Why doesn't your generation stop homaging and actually come up with something fresh? Because you should be, and every generation should be, making something monumental for that generation every day.
But at the same time, everything is inspired by something.
It's
from the
inspired,
past.
yes. Yeah.
So, and that kind of inspiration and gives you the motivation to create more. I mean,
but that's what I wanted to ask Valentina. It's like, so you have a whole new aspect ratio. Are you homaging? Are you inspired? Are you borrowing from 100 years of cinema, from series? Or are you saying, guys, this is so new, we're kind of pioneering, like what Joseph Mankiewicz had to do?
Yeah, no, I think we are pioneering. The only thing I am homaging is borrowing all my techniques that I used to have from my line producing experience from independent films. But when it comes to the vertical frame, we are seeing what works and what doesn't work, depending on if the audience is watching the show. And everything that works now is becoming like a new rule. Like, for example, every 3 seconds, every 4 seconds, cut to a different shot, or make sure your wardrobe is on point, especially the wardrobe from here up. I was telling my wardrobe designer, I told her, don't focus about the pants, don't worry about the skirts, the shorts, just do jackets, just do t-shirts.
Even though you're vertical. No,
Because in vertical it's very important to the mediums, and the close-ups are the most important, and the inserts. So the wides, because it's just a vertical frame, it's just hard to enjoy a wide shot for a long period of time in the phone. So you really need to focus on your close-ups and your extreme close-ups and inserts. So we focus a lot on the wardrobe, on like jackets, t-shirts, makeup, hair. That is very important. But anything, for example, shoes, I tell the wardrobe, I'm like, don't spend any money in shoes. Don't spend any money on pants.
So here's my question about this. Can you do the Steven Spielberg shot from Jaws? Can you do the Hitchcock shot from Vertigo, where the camera's pushing in, but you're zooming out to create that anomaly, that image? Are you homaging in that way with vertical screen?
So we are doing, so yes, you can do it. And I'll be super honest with you. I think right now the verticals is a world, this is like the babies of the verticals. I think right now we are being very rough around the edges because we're all learning. But
I love that. That's
but this is going to evolve, and I think we are going to get better and better and better. And in that line, in that train of thought, we are also going to get more artistic, which is what you're saying. We are going to get to the HBO quality level in a couple of years, where everything becomes just because we know what we're doing.
We have PWB level.
Exactly. Exactly. And and then everything is gonna get more complex. And I think we are, because right now the audience is the Gen Zs and then alphas, the Gen Alphas. But then later in a couple of years, I think we can do very artistic films that you and I and all of you in the room completely enjoy.
Well, I mean, you're breaking down this barrier of how you tell stories in that space. And the amazing thing about social media and, producing movies for social media, which is a very, very new thing, thanks to you, is you learn instantly, like, if it's gravitating or not. Like my daughter, she constantly is switching what she does, her content solely from hits. She knows instantly, like, oh, that didn't work. That didn't grab people's attention. I need to switch. I need to
but at the same time,
different angles.
But at the same time, if I may, take the other side of that argument, it's so flighty, and because it's flavor of the minute.
Yes.
And so
it's flavor of the minute.
Creating flavor of the minute, how do you know that's going to have longevity 5, 10, 20 years? Like
You
the
don't.
cinema that we learned when we were growing up, there's still images.
I think we're in such an accelerated world now.
We are.
That what was hip
But
3 minutes ago is not hip now.
This is a dual opportunity, the way I look at it, because what she's talking about is there's an ability to create content now that's a lot more powerful, a lot more stronger, that has much more depth and much more soul in it, and that could be for an older audience who watches it, and at the same time simultaneously continue this path for the younger audience, so that you're now giving a dual track for this type of content.
Last night we were talking at dinner, and one of the things I said was, and this is a conversation we have at the Academy all the time.
The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, folks.
Yes, is right now, how do we captivate your audience? To have them come to the movie theaters, because that has dropped off because of COVID, and it wasn't a normal thing for kids to go to movies for 3 or 4 years, and they gravitated to the smaller screen, and that's where they get their entertainment. My daughters had TVs in the room, never turned them on. Through COVID, they were just watching stuff on the small screen.
Well, it's interesting that for me, watching films at home in the theater, I always had to have somebody next to me. That was the thing. I would never sit down and watch a movie on my own,
Kind of
even
weird.
at home, right?
It's kind of weird.
But
I mean, I do too. I mean, I still do that.
That's how it was.
I do watch a lot of movies by myself, but
now you do today because that's normal.
Yeah.
But it used to be, I'm going to watch a movie. I'm not going to watch it by myself. And so
nobody went to the movies by
You
themselves.
didn't go by
They were
no,
losers.
you didn't. Because if you did, they put a blue spotlight on you. You know,
What?
and it followed
No,
you.
really?
Yeah, you know. Well, that's Steve Martin, the lonely guy. Sorry.
Nobody went to the
I was
movies.
like, wait a minute.
I'm going to go to
Yeah.
I
a
love
movie.
going to the movies by myself because, it's like,
That's right.
I
Well,
want
no,
to go
you
see.
do now, but I mean, it was sort of
No,
a.
no, no.
It was
I know
sort
what
of-
you're saying,
because-
but it's
yeah.
like, I actually
It was
like
a very
like,
communal-
Because if I want to see something, I'm gonna go see it. I'm not gonna wait for can
Well,
I
I mean, entertainment was a very communal.
by the way, nowadays
experience.
you better go see the movie theater now because next week it'll be gone.
Yes.
They go fast. Well, they sometimes go fast. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it's not, and I don't, with the Gen Z generation or the new generation, the younger generation, how they consume media communally is totally different.
Well, it's because it's solo and solo and solo and solo, and then they come together and say, "Did you see this thing? I'll send it to you." But they're having a singular experience by themselves, typically in their bedroom.
Yeah.
Now, it might be two kids watching it at the same time, but separately.
Hey, watch this. It's
Right.
something that they watched by themselves.
Yeah, no, and something that is also happening, I have my daughter, Sophia, she's 7, and I'm like, Sophia, do you want to, every time a Disney movie comes out, I'm like, let's go to the movie theater. No, mommy, I don't want to go to the movie theater. I don't like it. I don't want to go. And I see that she's always watching, YouTube, like, oh, this is my favorite YouTuber. And literally, these people just change. There is so much information. It's just so
They go
fast
very fast.
on the phone, and they don't have the patience to watch like the oneers, those really long takes that I love so much, like every time you go to the movie theater,
The opening shot of the player.
yes,
The opening shot of Touch of Evil.
yes. And so I think everything is becoming just very fast. And to go back to your point on coverage, it's just we are relying in everything, like pushing, zoom in, zoom out, cut here, cut there, like a lot of coverage, insert, special effects, like everything to make these 108 minutes extremely intense. And of course, as filmmakers, we are being very creative because we don't have all the resources to, do all this coverage. Especially we have, I think the last show was like 8 days. It was 8 days, 108 pages. So we were shooting about 10 pages a day plus. And honestly, it's just very hard because now you have every day is a 10-page day and you are just fighting with your crew to get shot by shot. And sometimes we just run out of time. So we go, okay, we'll punch in or zoom in, zoom out in post.
You know what you got to do? We have to make a Sergio Leone spaghetti western
Vertical.
right? Because
Yes.
that's what he was doing. He was one of the first filmmakers to have zoom in and zoom out and extreme close-ups and amazing wide shots.
And very effective too, because
Incredibly effective.
And so what you're talking about right now is think about some filmmaker today, like let's say Valentina would probably saw that as a kid. It's like, oh, but we can get away with that. We can do this.
You can actually do that vertical. Could you imagine a close-up of the gun and
Right.
vertical and close-up of the
Exactly.
face and the eyes and then
Yeah.
I'd
Because-
see that. I actually would watch that. That's kind
Well,
of cool.
I mean, yeah,
Well,
Sergio Leone took a medium and turned it up on its head.
He did.
But I want to
Yeah.
go back to the music thing because music
Yes,
is
sir.
very important to me, and that's why I brought you here because I think
I know
that
nothing about music. I can't even hold the beat.
You
right?
do. Well, you do. You know a lot. You know about music. You know about sound editing, and that's important to me because I was trying to go back to the fact that music is half the language of a film, and I know for your purposes, right now it's like they can't afford the expensive composed music. It's all stuff that's canned usually that accompanies these.
Licensed.
Mhm.
Whatever, but
Yeah, I mean,
you
it's
know,
licensed.
It's
Yeah.
licensed.
and the craft that you have, because I remember it with my own film, he was able to manipulate scenes in certain ways, tonally and emotionally, by how you cut that sound, how you incorporated a piece of music and dropped it in and took it out and faded it and all that.
You're
Well, I
talking-
have actually a question because it's going. I'm, really into this. Where's
know,
this
but I
future
wanna-
going?
Yeah.
But because it does sort of relate. Do you actually have the subtitles too? Like because a lot of kids don't even listen to
Yes.
sound.
Everything has
Yeah.
to be subtitles. And actually, we do frame for, or let me rephrase, we frame to accommodate the subtitles. That is something that we talked about in pre-production, and it is extremely important. Every time you're doing a close-up
need
or an
me.
extreme
There's no music.
Close up.
There's
No, that
there's
is
just-
not true. That is
There's
not
no
at all, man.
sound.
I
That
like
is not true.
mute.
Sound.
Everybody's like, wait, there's sound.
No,
People talk.
actually, no. You will be surprised.
I'm
So
just kidding. Yes.
we sound is extremely important. We do spend a lot of money on sound mixer, boom operators because we don't have the money to fix things in post.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And also we do music and sound design, and we get studio notes on music and sound design, and it is
And they're
very important.
doing it in a vertical format too. So
And then
They actually live in a vertical format. They go home in a vertical format.
They
They go to
sleep
dinner.
standing up.
It's everything is vertical.
Oh God, dad jokes.
I'm vertical right now. I'm vertical right now.
Yeah.
well,
And
I
this is
wasn't
the
last night.
devolution.
Last night we were not
Of this
vertical.
podcast
Last night
as
we
it's
tried to
starting
be-
off.
Yeah, we tried.
Towards the second half of the podcast.
Yes.
No, you know what? It's funny. You'll be surprised. I get very upset every time I see the music or the sound notes. Like, please switch this to drama. This feels very sci-fi. Please change this tune.
Have you tried the approach of like, you know, having composers like so that that's the one thing like from television or from movies, having a composer rather than having canned or licensed music gives an identity and a a theme or a common theme through scenes and stuff that makes it cohesive, and you can manipulate emotions with using the same theme so that it's that your series has this commonality to it sonically as far as music.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love and adore your comment because I think what you're talking about ties into the evolution of verticals and where we're going. I think right now everything, because it was very low budget,
Mhm.
we were just using my art list account and
Yeah.
just using the license songs from there. But so much better to have a composer take care
But
of the
I don't
whole
think it's like a
rough cut
cost
and go
issue.
for it.
I think there's so many, and we come across
Mhm.
young people. Yes, in feature world, it gets very expensive, but there's so many struggling composers out there, and
this
that
is why we
giving
have
them
Producers
the
Without Borders,
opportunity
because the music guy is gonna now, after this event, gonna talk to her about finding new composers.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think the biggest challenge right now is the deadlines. I think
Yeah.
because we have 3 weeks about like depending with, just so you know, with Pocket FM we were doing 2 weeks of post, and now with different clients sometimes they have 3 weeks of post. So as long as the like right now, if a composer jumped into a vertical project, he will have to work very fast. It's like fast, cheap, and good, and so hard.
and that
because
and
you only
just
have
to
two.
just to speak to that. I'm just throwing this out there. Think of Seinfeld. Seinfeld has this piece of music that somebody wrote for it. Don't ask me who. Somebody wrote for it that constantly got re-edited for the episodes. So like starting that earlier and sitting down with a composer and going over ideas and having them give you all those little bits and pieces like the bumpers and
familiarity
for your title theme, and then the bumpers like
Mhm.
endings and starts and all that, and then you just pepper those in, and that show has this cohesive kind of a cool. People remember tunes. That's the other thing, is that you hum tunes. In my head I just heard Seinfeld's
Boom, 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 boom,
Yeah, me
boom,
too,
right?
me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I love
and
that.
that the identity of shows has this musical background to it, and I'm not a musician. I have not.
No, I love this. No, I
Yeah.
love this.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think because right now a composer could really enrich the show because we do different genres. We do my favorites are fantasy with vampires. We also do werewolves, and then we also have the drama, like the hospital drama, like people falling in love in a hospital,
Mhm.
and of course
Which is huge.
which is huge.
Huge.
which
My
is
daughters
huge.
watched Grey's Anatomy, 4 times over, like the
Mhm.
entire series, and they would start all over again. I
Yeah.
don't know why, but
Yeah.
and now she's becoming a doctor.
Oh, there you go. That's great.
Congratulations. So proud of
I mean, it came
her.
from that. It came from watching Grey's Anatomy and how cool these
That's cool.
young
That's
characters were.
inspirational.
Yeah.
No, but definitely as producers, we all focus on sound and music and sound design. I think that is 50% of your project. And yeah,
30%
definitely.
now because they're
Well, it's
reading it.
interesting. I
I'm
mean,
trying to give you so much more credit.
well, no, but it's interesting what Kami is saying and what Kayvon's saying is true. If you're watching anything and the picture goes out for a second, but the sound is consistent, you're okay. You drop the sound out and you look up and go, what happened?
It's true. I mean,
It's like-
I
it's
guess
more-
I'm just a
it's more-
purist when it comes to that. I mean, just the way I started loving movies, shows, anything, I associate the music, the sound, the soundtrack, whatever, so much to those images. They're always attached in my mind. So even if I'm somewhere and I hear something, some notes that are similar to that, it makes me think about the movie. And also, like it brings back
and all
memories
work
for
together.
it.
The edit, the whole. To me, all movies come together in post. I'm going to get hated for that.
Oh, I mean,
you
it's
No,
true.
we
Look,
won't hate
I mean,
you. We won't hate you.
we won't hate you because there's that old adage. I mean, there's 3 scripts, right? There's the shooting script. Oh, sorry, the reading script, the shooting script, and the thing that ends up in the editing room, which ends up on the screen. The final product ends with you before it ends up on the screen.
I mean,
depending on
I feel a movie is sort of like a dish. And how it's prepared is in post, and you go and forage for stuff and get all the material that you need for that dish. You go to the farm, you go to the store, you go whatever,
Because ultimately,
and what ultimately comes together in the kitchen.
Ultimately, it all depends on what Glenn wants before it ends up on the screen.
But what's great, and I'm going to bring it back to PWB for a second. Everything we're talking about is about collaboration.
Yes.
Right, this entirety, this village, the sound mixer, the storytellers, where you're shooting it,
how you're shooting it,
Oh,
the camera guy, the wardrobe person, all of those people kind of have to come together and collaborate in order to make entertainment,
right?
Which is why we're here.
And the way you communicate and how you communicate is important because people will only respect you and pay attention to you. I mean, you can have the best skills in the world, you can have the most knowledge of something, but if you can't get people to work with you, it creates a very, very difficult environment to create in a way that's going to be lasting. Because a lot of times in this industry, you end up working with the same people that because there's a flow to it. There's an ebb and flow where you know how to deal with crises. Okay, this person is going to be this way. It's finding that right click, your tribe, so you can vibe with your tribe. And that's really what it's all about.
No, and definitely there are 3 films or 3 projects that you make, the one that you write, the one that you shoot, and the one that you create in post-production. And I think the process is very creative and fluid, and you have to allow others to come in and add to the creativity because you cannot, it's not a one person show, it's all of us working together. And I think always very respectful of the others and also loving and grateful of the ideas that they bring to you. Like I'm very grateful for, your comment on, what about the composer adding to your show? Because I don't think I go, oh my God, but I cannot afford a composer. I don't have the money. But you go, no, Valentina, there are some artists that are struggling and they would be happy to work with you. So I think every time someone gives you an idea, you welcome it, you embrace it. And then when you watch the final product, you are just very proud of the work that all of us created together.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, which actually brings me to the little tripartite principles of PWB and our network, which you bring up the attitude of gratitude is one of the things that, basically attitude of gratitude means being grateful for all the skills, the talent, the knowledge, the experience, everything you've accumulated in your life based on your background and what your history is. Whatever you bring to that game, you are grateful for that knowledge and you are willing to share it with your colleagues, with your community, with the people that are like-minded, that believe in those same principles. Second thing that's really important to us first is being responsive. Like, when I call up Glenn or I call up Kami, I ask them anything, they respond very quickly. They have a million things going on in their lives. But the fact that they treat me like a family member and they're like, okay, what is it that you need? Well, I can't help you with that, but I know somebody who can. And that's being responsive. And what you need, because you don't have a lot of time to shoot these things, is having a network and people that are your go-to. You pick up the phone and they're responding to you. Responsiveness is so important in our business because,
You know, Glenn told me something really funny because whenever they want to deny something, they just look at you and say, "What else you got?"
Yeah, we don't say no.
They never say no. In his line of upper scale studio world, they never say no. It's what else you got? So being responsive is so important in our community. And finally, I think the most important thing that I'm really proud of with PWB is paying it forward. When you have something and you make somebody else's dreams come true, you make their ideas come alive, that's an empowering thing because they won't forget what you've done for them, not for the sake you did it because you had to do it, because you wanted to do it. This is so important about PWB is because people that are involved in it, they look at you and say, you know, I want to do that for you because by doing that for you, I'm empowering you. All the things you were talking about earlier, empowerment. Yeah. And empowerment is what strengthens the nucleus of this group.
Somebody with all of us gave us a hand up and said, hey, you belong. You know, you need to, you know, you can be here, you can be in this space, you can be creative, you can do anything that you've achieved at this point. And we have to sort of do the same thing for others, you know, and it's always like, you know, give the hand out, help people along. And that's how this industry has grown. Mm-hmm. Somebody gave somebody a chance and somebody listened to somebody and said, hey, that's a neat idea. I'm going to run with it. Why don't, or talk to that guy and he's going to help you run with it.
You know, when I was breaking into the movie business, it wasn't democratized. And I did get in by the way of making sure that I had something useful for others. Mm-hmm. So I was brought in, I was pulled in because I could be additive to what they were building. But people asked, did I have a mentor? And the answer is no, I didn't have any mentor at all. I had to figure this out. But I did eventually when I got into the studio system. I had a mentor, and it was because someone else decided to pay it forward. I had made maybe 10 films at this time, and I produced a picture for a woman named Verna Hera, and her husband created Hera's Casino, which later became Caesars. So she had financial wealth, but she had a passion for filmmaking. I executive produced her movie. I took care of her production value needs, took care of the director's vision, took care of the cast, and her way of paying it forward was calling up the president at Columbia TriStar Motion Picture Group. And I remember walking in to meet the guy. It was the first time ever. And my heart was probably racing a little bit. This was Gary Martin. God bless him.
What a big soul.
Beautiful, beautiful person. By the way, he always paid it forward by giving to the Motion Picture Television Fund. But when I sat down in his office, he said, sit down, kiddo. He said, look, when a woman worth $3 billion says I got to meet you, I sure as heck know you didn't bribe her. So I would take these meetings with him at in the Thalberg building at Columbia Pictures, and I think those meetings I would do it every quarter for about a year or 2 years, until he finally said, "Don't worry about it, kiddo. I got something for you." And he was the one who gave me the introduction to Adam Sandler, and then I went on to produce 3 movies with Adam.
And we worked together.
And then that's where Tommy and I were doing pictures together. We did Grandma's Boy, which was this amazing college film about getting stoned and playing video games. And college, it's probably still pretty big.
Huge.
Still huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I see a vertical in that right now.
Oh, no. It's vertical.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm seeing I'll shoot that in 3 different languages for 500
That's it. That's it.
It takes me 5 days to do that.
That's right. Stoned college kids always work.
We'll have 5 million views in the first week.
Yeah. By the way, you have to use the product when you're filming it too. I'll just tell you.
Yes. That was and it's very hard to get on projects and build a clientele. It's very hard. It's really, really easy to lose clients, but it's really, really hard to gain clients. And, you know, with our relationship, you know, and it was a tough place to work. They had a very specific way of making movies for a certain amount of money. And it was very fast paced and everything was based on success, you know. And
more number one films than any other label.
Yeah. I think I had 10 number one movies, you know, in a matter of like 3 years.
Right. Since we're kind of getting towards the end of this wonderful discussion, and this is our first podcast ever, so we hope you tune in for many more down the line. But these 3 incredible individuals have been so amazingly kind and generous with their time and their knowledge and their experience. So I want to ask each of them, tell me why PWB is important to you and let people know why you are part of this group, how it's impacted you, and where do you see it going? I'd like, just a few words from you, because it's going to be the inspirational thing that's going to kind of move us forward for the following editions and episodes for other guests that we're going to be having on that are part of this network. Kami? You don't want to start with, I'll start with Valentina if you want. I would go this way. Valentina? She's been actually
I love hearing her voice.
By the way, she's fantastic.
Yes.
She is the star of this show, by the way.
Yes, she is. We're all going to be working for Valentina.
No, you guys
We're all going to be working for her anyway. But anyway, Valentina.
No. What an honor to be in the room with you, gentlemen. What a pleasure. No. I really think PWB is that family that I go to every time I feel lonely as a producer and I don't know where to go and I feel stuck. The team is always there for me to catch me, always giving me support, encouragement, and a great network of people where I can collaborate and just continue to move forward. And I'm very grateful to have this community in my life because I would like to expand. Right now, currently, I am filming in Los Angeles, California, all of the shows, but I know the community expands globally, and I would love to work and collaborate with people in Europe, Asia, Latin America, and I think the network is big enough to allow ourselves to expand and just, give the audience the entertainment they need and they want.
Yeah, I think that's right. For me, it's collaboration as well, because if you have an inspired story, you want to know that you've got the world of opportunities. I love shooting in Los Angeles. I've done a lot of pictures in LA, throughout the country and throughout the world, and I've been blessed to have traveled around the world. And I know ambassadors and premiers and so forth, and other leaders in all various disciplines. But there's no way I can know everybody everywhere, and that's why we're stronger as a group. And it's really exciting to see when we do certain get-togethers where we collaborate, when we talk about opportunities. Nobody's pitching anything to anybody. Everybody's just listening and feeling on an equal level platform. But then when we do have a question, we have somebody we can call.
Yes.
That's right. There,
That's
it.
right. That's all I got. No,
Academy Award nominated Kami Asghar right there.
Yes.
Sound mixer. Yes.
yes.
Right.
Yes. You're welcome.
With subtitles, I put the subtitles.
You're welcome. No, I do feel it's it's an ever evolving world that we're in, and it's constantly changing. It's always something new. We're on the edge of technology. We're on the edge of all the new ways of telling stories and entertainment. So it's good to have. I think there was a girl that was going to make a friend of mine that was going to make a documentary, and she was going by herself to shoot migrants, all over Europe and all that. This is 4 or 5 years ago. I picked up the phone, I called up Kayvon, and I said, "Hey, she needs help. If she gets stuck somewhere, she needs to have somebody that has connections that is going to be able to help her out." That sort of connection and having that, being able to be a part of a community that you can just pick up the phone and talk to one person that's going to talk to another person. Within 3 phone calls, you're going to have your answer.
Mm-hmm.
You could be stuck anywhere in the world, and I can make a phone call, and I know within 2 conversations I'm going to have it solved.
Yeah.
And that's the power of Producers Without Borders. It really is Producers Without Borders. And we have such a global reach of anything we want to get done, any question that you have, any obstacle that you fall behind, or you just want to talk something through.
Yeah, it's much better than our competitors, Producers With Borders, because they don't let anybody in.
We live with the Producers With Borders. They got borders around every
They
studio.
need a visa.
That's right.
They need a visa
Yeah.
to go.
And
to
the dad
That's
jokes
it.
are in.
Yeah, the Producers With Borders.
Yeah.
I don't like those guys.
No.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, I think what you're doing, Valentina, also is pretty amazing, because you got the vertical format. When I started making films, I'm gonna do one more dad joke. As Mel Brooks said, the hardest thing about making films was poking all the holes in the side of the sprockets, because there's like 1 million of them, and you don't have to worry about that.
Yes.
I said one more dad
No,
joke.
no,
which was
I
a Mel
mean,
Brooks
no,
joke.
but listen.
That was a Mel
I'm
Brooks.
watching
No,
the
but
people
listen.
tune out right
There you
now.
go.
They're like,
They're gone.
This is like
Sprockets.
the end.
They understood.
This is
we
the
didn't
end.
understand verticals.
Yeah.
They didn't understand sprockets.
And
Yes,
remember, I was
that's
trying
it.
to ask you guys to say this so there would be another episode.
There you go. That just killed it. There
No,
will be no more
no
after
We're
dad
not coming back.
jokes.
The old,
Don't
the old,
finish with dad
the
jokes.
old, the old dudes
And
aren't coming
yeah,
back.
that's
It'll
right.
be
It's
just
not
Valentina.
Good. Not good.
Yeah. Well, we
Just have Valentina on
No,
it.
I was just gonna say that sometimes as a filmmaker, it just feels pretty lonely in the sense that, there are just so many challenges to make a successful project or to make a project successful that sometimes you're just stuck and you just need a friend. And I think Producer Without Borders just allow us to have that friend that is always there for you showing up and
Yeah. Winter, spring, summer, or fall. All you've got to do is call, and I'll be there.
Oh my God. I hope this is not a licensed
It is.
thing that we have to go
That's it.
into. So that's going to get cut.
No, me encantó. I
Thank
know.
you.
I
Thank you.
know.
I am
Thank you,
also
Glenn.
part of the legal department here.
That's it. I didn't sing it. I did not sing it.
You know,
so
he can
use
say
it.
the words.
I can say the words. That's a copyright.
He didn't
Copyright
say the
check.
name of the artist. You know,
That's right.
It's all good. It's all good.
At least give credit. I mean,
Yes.
that's all I wanna
Qué
say.
risa. Or a friend that makes you laugh is
That's
always
it.
there with jokes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you need a
Sometimes
joke.
that's all you need. It's,
Yes.
And I'll
somebody
be
to give
there.
you a joke and
Yes,
you go,
I will.
Yes, yes.
And it is. What we do is not brain surgery. We're not
Yes.
saving
I mean,
lives.
Glenn always tries to throw a zinger in there.
Yes, yes.
Like, take us
No,
down.
we always
What?
work with good humor and
Yeah.
happiness because we are entertainers. We want to make
Yes.
people laugh.
And
Yes.
one final thing. Where would you like to see Producers Without Borders 3 years from now? I mean, how would you like
Yeah.
to see it grow? Because the thing is, this network is not about the quantity of people we have; it's about the quality. So the core comes down to this, as I said before, a nucleus of people that are doers and not talkers, the people who actually contribute to the growth in an organic way that makes it stronger. Because the stronger it gets, the more effective and more purposeful it gets, and that creates that gravitational pull. And a lot of times I get this asked, how do I join? How do I join? How do I join? Well, there's lots of ways to join, but the easiest way to join is to be a doer and not a talker.
And the number is below the screen just to donate right there. If you look at
Yeah.
1-800.
And that's just it. You come recommended by somebody who's in the network because they see your value to the network, not your value for yourself to cut a deal and be transactional and get out of it. So that's kind of important.
Well, and let me ask you this question. Would you be open to Producer Without Borders in 4 years to be the house and the foundation of a place where we all coming together and collaborating projects?
Well, it's that right now. I mean, it's PWB's has been credited on 2 motion pictures already in the past 2 years in a row. And it's because of that collaborative effort of the people who've come through that network to be a part of it and to work with one another together and to see it through and think about the others before they think about themselves.
So I think it's just about making the team stronger and just do more projects, do volume and also quality, and maybe a section of the team focuses on volume and the other section of the team focuses on quality. So a few projects that are really, really good, high-end budgets, and maybe a bunch of low-budget projects that, and then maybe we cover all different quadrants of the audience. That could also be a really nice objective for PWB in 3 years.
I mean, knowing what outside of just coming to events, knowing what opportunities are out there within and what people are doing. Like, I didn't know what Valentina was up to. I didn't know what Glenn is up to. But projects that are going and how you can be involved and and reaching out physically to people and saying, hey, you do this.
Yeah.
But knowing what those projects are.
Yeah, I mean, I think Glenn and I have been talking about this. It'd be great that the objective is to create this kind of this house where everything has different divisions and everything comes under the umbrella of Producers Without Borders Presents. So it becomes something that has an identity to it, where the DNA is all about these people who are collaborative and think about creating things together because they want to continue creating. They want to have the opportunities to come to them quicker because it comes through the group.
And that's the idea behind it. Whether or not that ethos of authenticity is going to be able to be transported forward, because we have to empower the next generation. We can't be doing this all ourselves for the rest of our lives. You want to be able to see other people take on that
And carry it forward.
mantra and carry it forward. But the only way they do that is if they're taught that that's how it works in this business. Everybody talks about its relationships. Yeah, but the relationships have a purpose to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that purpose of authenticity, they have to understand that if the more authentic you are, the more real you are, the more you bring people together, because that's ultimately going to save you in circumstances that are beyond your control, when things can potentially unravel due to a multitude of effects. And that's what producers deal with. We're just basically dealing with putting out fires. That's all you really do. You put out fires and you make sure the show goes on. Nobody's looking behind the screen, behind the curtain to see what's happening. It's what you deliver in the very end that matters.
And we all have our weaknesses and strengths, and I think all together we can
You
cover
become
each
stronger, right?
Yeah.
So basically, it's not about how messy it is behind that curtain. It's, at the end of the day, what is the final product that you were able to deliver?
Speak more about this weakness thing. What is that?
Well, the weakness comes from, I tell you what, from lack of knowledge,
kidding.
lack of. Well, okay, I can go out. Anyway, I think we're wrapping it up. I think we've kind of
Reached our point.
Reached our point. And with that, I'd like to thank Mr. Kami Asghar, Mr. Glenn Gaynor, Ms. Valentina Bove for being part of this initial first ever Producers Without Borders podcast. Clap your hands for yourselves.
Thanks. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you very
It was
much, and we'll catch
amazing.
you at a later episode this year.
Glenn, make sure you write some more dad jokes.
Okay, we'll end with this. An old Hollywood executive once said, "Sincerity is the most important thing. And if you can fake that, you've got it made."
Thanks. That's a wrap.
I love it.
Thanks for joining us today. Join us next time on our podcast, heading into the upcoming 78th Cannes Film Festival.